Warantec với chúng ta là một tên tuổi rất là mới mẻ trên thị trường implant Việt Nam. Tuy nhiên thì Warantec đã có một lịch sử rất dài từ những năm 1995 bắt đầu nghiên cứu, và nó bắt đầu từ một dự án của đây là hãng đây có thể là một hãng implant duy nhất tại Hàn Quốc mà không phải bắt đầu việc nghiên cứu từ việc thuần túy về mục đích thương mại, mà nó là một dự án nghiên cứu của chính phủ. Và thời điểm đó thì chính phủ Hàn Quốc đã rất là quan tâm đến việc implant, nhưng thị trường Hàn Quốc khi đó chỉ sử dụng các implant nhập khẩu đến từ các nước châu Âu và Mỹ. Vậy nên là chính phủ đã ra một dự án là nghiên cứu một hệ thống implant made in Korea, và họ đã tập hợp 3 trường đại học có khoa chuyên ngành răng hàm mặt lớn nhất tại Hàn Quốc, cùng với lựa chọn những gương mặt chuyên gia đầu ngành của Hàn Quốc về implant thời điểm đó. Và đến bây giờ là họ vẫn đồng hành và họ vẫn là cổ đông của Warantec cho đến thời điểm này. Và cái thời điểm mà sau năm 1995 là bắt đầu dự án G7 là bắt đầu triển khai hoạt động, và sau 5 năm nghiên cứu là một quãng thời gian từ đến năm 2000 thì thương hiệu Implant Warantec chính thức ra đời và được ra mắt thị trường Hàn Quốc vào năm 2001. Các anh chị có thể thấy là một cái hành trình phát triển về thiết kế implant của Hàn Quốc. Từ dự án G7 năm 1995 cho đến năm 2001 là thương hiệu implant ra đời, Warantec ra đời, và đến năm 2006 sau khi chuẩn hóa tất cả các quy trình thì họ đã có được các cái chứng chỉ tại Mỹ, về lúc đó thì sử dụng hệ thống One Body, và tiếp đến là họ liên tục đạt được các chứng chỉ về sản xuất như là chứng chỉ quốc tế như là ISO 13485 hay là CE FDA, là tất cả những chứng chỉ cao nhất về implant tại những thị trường khó tính nhất để có thể bán được ở thị trường Mỹ. Và đến năm 2017 vẫn theo một cái đà phát triển như vậy thì tập đoàn dược là Yuhan là một tập đoàn dược lớn số 1 tại Hàn Quốc, họ đã rót vốn đầu tư vào Implant Warantec, và đặc biệt là một dấu mốc mà có thể thay đổi một phần chất lượng của Implant Warantec, đó chính là sự đầu tư của Straumann vào năm 2019. Một tập đoàn mà đã là số 1 thế giới về implant rồi, việc lựa chọn một cái thương hiệu local, một thương hiệu nhỏ để mà tiếp tục phát triển thì chắc chắn nó sẽ có nhiều lý do, bởi khi đó thì Warantec đã là một thương hiệu implant đã có đầy đủ tất cả các chứng nhận, và họ đánh giá và họ muốn mua lại phần lớn cái cổ phần của Warantec. Và khi mà Straumann khi mà em nói về lịch sử thì đến năm 2024 thì ADI lại là một cổ đông chiến lược, và họ đã mua cổ phần lại của Straumann, có nghĩa là Straumann đã dẫn dắt và phát triển Warantec trong vòng 5 năm ạ. Đây các bác sĩ có thể nhìn thấy, đây là một số để bảo mật thông tin. Thật ra đây là những cái thương hiệu rất là phổ biến và các bác sĩ đang dùng rất nhiều tại Việt Nam. Theo một cái nghiên cứu về bề mặt SLA thì khi mà zoom lên từ kính hiển vi 1000 thì các bác sĩ có thể thấy là cái mức độ nó hơi khác nhau như thế này. Về thiết kế thì đến năm 2016 thì Implant Warantec đã ra đời một cái thiết kế mới nhất. Và đây cũng là dòng sản phẩm mà có bán được đón nhận nhất đối với thương hiệu Implant Warantec. Thứ nhất là có kết nối côn lục giác chống xoay góc côn 11 độ, khá là phổ biến đối với các cái implant Hàn Quốc. Thứ hai là thiết kế thân thẳng và thuôn dần về phía chóp thì nó sẽ giúp có được sự ổn định ban đầu vượt trội. Và thế hệ kết hợp gen vuông và gen tam giác ở phía dưới thì sẽ giúp việc phân bổ ứng suất hiệu quả và hoạt động phẫu thuật dễ dàng hơn nhờ khả năng ổn định ban đầu, và đặc biệt là có bề mặt SLA rất là chất lượng. Tiếp đến là phần gen và chóp lý tưởng sẽ giúp giảm ứng suất và tăng khả năng tự cắt. Đây là một nghiên cứu vô cùng quan trọng, rất quan trọng và có ý nghĩa với thương hiệu Implant Warantec. Đó là vào năm 2022, có một bài nghiên cứu về theo dõi toàn bộ quá trình cấy ghép cho các bệnh nhân tại Hàn Quốc, thì dựa trên một con số là mẫu số là 1.769 implant đã được cấy ghép vào bệnh nhân. Trong đó thì có 1.368 là dòng IT, là dòng implant cũ, và 401 dòng IU là sản phẩm implant mới. Thì cái tỷ lệ cấy trên 804 bệnh nhân thì cái tỷ lệ tồn tại đối với cái Implant IU là 99% và tỷ lệ tồn tại đối với IT là 98,8%. Đối với Implant chắc chắn đây là một con số vô cùng lý tưởng. Và có một điều đặc biệt hơn là về cái mũi khoan của Implant Warantec thì họ sử dụng mũi khoan là dạng thu thập xương. Chính vì vậy nó sẽ rất là hữu ích trong việc là chúng ta ghép xương cho các bệnh nhân và có cái độ tương thích rất là cao, cũng như là tiết kiệm được rất là nhiều chi phí cho bệnh nhân khi mà phải ghép xương. Thì tất cả những cái bộ kit này, các mũi khoan thì bên em có set up ở cái phần ở dưới kia để các anh chị có thể cấy thử ở trên xương heo. Và hôm nay bên em có chuẩn bị các máy cắm cũng như là các mũi khoan và đầy đủ các bộ kit để anh chị có thể tham khảo và dùng thử trong các cái giờ nghỉ giải lao. Thì đây là một trong những cái case, cái mức độ xương mà nó thu thập được dựa trên cái mũi khoan này. Và đối với Implant Warantec thì liên tục phát triển và có một cái hệ thống phục hình đơn này, phục hình toàn hàm hay là phục hình kỹ thuật số thì vô cùng đầy đủ, là không có thiếu bất kể một phụ kiện nào. Và các cái bộ kit, ngoài các cái bộ kit phẫu thuật, các bộ kit hướng dẫn ra thì họ cũng phát triển tất cả các bộ kit như là kit tháo gỡ implant, screw hay là tháo gỡ abutment, bộ định vị vít. Kit nâng xoang thì sẽ có 2 loại và đây chính là cái sản phẩm mới nhất là bộ mũi kit nâng xoang 2, bởi vì nó có một cái cơ chế rất là đặc biệt, đó là cơ chế bảo vệ thành xoang đặc biệt an toàn trong những trường hợp mà cần nâng xoang. Và ngày hôm nay thì bên em cũng có demo một cái bộ ở dưới kia để anh chị có thể tham khảo xem các cái mũi của nó như thế nào và cách nó hoạt động ra sao. Và khi mà ADI là một cổ đông chiến lược đầu tư vào Warantec thì Warantec trở thành một thương hiệu implant với sự toàn diện về quy trình kỹ thuật số, từ implant cho đến tất cả các hoạt động về sản xuất phục hình. Thì đây là một cái thế mạnh mà Implant Warantec so sánh với cả các thương hiệu implant tại Hàn Quốc là có một cái sự vượt trội hơn, đó là như vậy. Vâng, trên đây là những điều em tóm tắt lại một chút và rất là nhanh về thương hiệu Implant Warantec. Ngày hôm nay thì sẽ có một số bác sĩ có nhận được quà tặng, đúng không ạ? Quà tặng của các bác sĩ nhận được đó là một trụ Implant Warantec và một premium chính hãng. Lý do tại sao mà bên em set up một cái chương trình quà tặng như vậy đó là bởi ở Việt Nam thì chúng ta thường có một thói quen dùng phụ kiện của bên thứ ba, nhưng mà khi mà em tiếp cận với những bác sĩ mà giàu kinh nghiệm thì thường sự lựa chọn của bác sĩ là 100% là dùng hàng chính hãng và không dùng bên thứ ba. Chính vì vậy nên là em muốn tạo được một cơ hội nào đó để các bác sĩ thử dùng. Thứ nhất là dùng Implant Warantec, thứ hai là dùng premium chính hãng. Thì chúng ta sẽ cùng theo dõi xem các cái độ khít sát, độ chính xác khi mà chúng ta dùng cái phụ kiện chính hãng nó sẽ khác biệt như thế nào. Và đặc biệt hơn nữa là Implant mời được 6 đơn vị là các labo, là đây cũng là những cái đối tác rất là trung thành với Implant, khi mà Implant đã set up toàn bộ các cái giải pháp về labo kỹ thuật số dành cho họ, và họ có các cái máy cắt kim loại hoàn toàn có thể cắt premium. Và điều mà các labo mang đến đây đó là khi mà các anh chị nhận được cái premium đấy thì hoàn toàn có thể cắt miễn phí, là các lab hỗ trợ là cắt miễn phí. Thông thường một cái cắt đấy thì ở bên ngoài anh chị sẽ mất đâu đấy thu phí khoảng vài trăm ngàn, đúng không ạ? Thế nhưng mà hôm nay mình đã có trụ miễn phí này, có premium miễn phí và có cả việc gia công miễn phí nữa. Thế nên là đây sẽ là một trong những cơ hội mà anh chị có thể thử, hoặc bác sĩ nào đang cân nhắc trong cái việc là lab mà mình đang làm chưa có thực sự là đâu đó đạt được cái mong muốn của mình thì mình có thể thử ở các labo khác. Thì ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh thì có Opan là ở Đắk Lắk, và em biết là ở hôm nay ngày ở đây thì có rất nhiều bác sĩ đến từ khu vực Đắk Lắk đi xuống đây và khu vực Tây Nguyên xuống đây để tham dự hội thảo. Và ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh thì bên em có lab là NT Digital Lab là ở Bình Tân và Medilab là ở thành phố Thủ Đức. Thì anh chị hoàn toàn có thể kết nối và có thể khi mà anh chị kết nối với các lab này thì hoàn toàn có thể được cắt miễn phí. Và đặc biệt là có những anh chị ngày hôm nay thì không có cái phần quà tặng đấy, lý do là bởi các anh chị đã dùng Implant Warantec rồi, hoặc là các anh chị đang là khách mời thân thiết của một số đối tác bên em đề xuất. Chính vì vậy nhưng bên em cũng vẫn set up một cái chương trình khuyến mại và chỉ trong ngày hôm nay thôi, và anh chị hoàn toàn có thể có mua cái Warantec và Premium với mức giá vô cùng khuyến mại và vẫn được nhận cái chương trình là hỗ trợ về cái chi phí Premium này tại các lab như thế này. Đó, và chỉ trong hôm nay thôi ạ. Vâng, bây giờ để quay lại chương trình chính thì Implant ngày hôm nay sẽ mang đến cho các bác sĩ một chương trình về chủ đề là từ cấy ghép tức thì cho đến hành trình mới của bệnh nhân với kỹ thuật số. Và trong phiên sáng nay thì sẽ là phiên chia sẻ của bác sĩ của giáo sư Cho Young Dan đến từ Hàn Quốc. Và em có một số lưu ý trong suốt buổi hội thảo ngày hôm nay, đó là bên em sẽ có set up một khu vực trưng bày sản phẩm ở bên dưới, cũng như là một khu vực thực hành ở bên dưới. Và tea break thì bên em có set up là tea break sáng và chiều. Trong trường hợp mà anh chị có muốn ra ngoài tea break mà chưa đến giờ thì anh chị cứ có thể thoải mái để mình di chuyển ra ngoài và sử dụng. Và buổi trưa thì bên em mời các anh chị bữa buffet trưa, và chúng em sẽ phát cho mình một cái coupon để mình có thể di chuyển lên phòng ăn. Và chúng ta sẽ quay lại hội trường vào lúc 13 giờ. Có 3 điều quan trọng hơn nữa, đó là hôm nay tất cả các anh chị đều đeo thẻ và có nhận được cái con số may mắn ở đằng sau, đúng không ạ? Thì anh chị hãy giữ cái con số này đến cuối giờ, bởi vì là Implant sẽ có một chương trình bốc thăm may mắn vô cùng với phần quà vô cùng hấp dẫn, lên đến hàng chục triệu đồng. Thế nên là anh chị hãy ở lại đến cuối giờ và giữ được cái thẻ này. Ở đằng sau đó cũng là một cái form để các anh chị có thể đặt câu hỏi đến các chuyên gia. Trường hợp mà anh chị nảy ra bất kỳ một câu hỏi nào có thể quét mã và đặt ở trên đó, và chúng em sẽ update tới bác sĩ và sẽ được giải đáp tới anh chị vào trong một cái thời điểm phù hợp nhất. Và ngày hôm nay thì giáo sư Cho có mang đến một cái mini game nho nhỏ nữa. Đó là sau phần trình bày của bác về cấy ghép implant tức thì bác sẽ có một vài cái quiz nho nhỏ để thử thách các bác sĩ Việt Nam. Và chắc chắn là các bác sẽ nhận được những phần quà đến từ ban tổ chức. Thế nên là mọi người hãy sôi động để mà có thể tham gia cùng bác sĩ giáo sư Cho trong cái phần này ạ. Đây là agenda, em sẽ đi qua một chút agenda. Buổi sáng thì về phần của giáo sư Cho về tối ưu cấy ghép tức thì, và đến buổi chiều sẽ là chủ đề của bác sĩ Trần Hùng Lâm và team và nhóm của các bác sĩ đến từ TSL Academy, gồm bác sĩ Trà My, bác sĩ Mạnh Hưng và bác sĩ Thanh Vân, về chủ đề đó là hành trình của bệnh nhân trong khi mà ứng dụng quy trình kỹ thuật số toàn diện. Với bác Cho thì có lẽ là không xa lạ gì với nhiều bác sĩ ở Việt Nam khi mà đã tham gia học tập ở Hàn Quốc, và bác sĩ Cho cũng đã về Việt Nam trong một số chương trình để giảng dạy workshop, hội thảo như thế này. Và em xin lướt qua một chút, đó là bác sĩ tiến sĩ Cho, phó giáo sư tiến sĩ Cho thì hiện đang công tác tại Đại học Quốc gia Seoul, và bác có rất nhiều năm kinh nghiệm về nha chu và implant. Và hiện tại thì bác cũng đã từng là học giả nghiên cứu của Viện Kiêm nghiệm Khoa Nha Chu và Y học miệng trường Michigan, Hàn Quốc. Ngày hôm nay thì với chủ đề về cấy ghép implant tức thì 4 chủ đề chuyên sâu mà bác sẽ nhắc đến, 4 cái topic chuyên sâu bác sẽ nhắc đến, đó là kỹ thuật nhổ răng không gây chấn thương, định vị trụ implant trong ổ răng mới nhổ, tái tạo và quản lý mô mềm, cấy ghép implant vùng nhiễm trùng, và giải quyết nguy cơ tiếp xúc chân răng kế cận khi mà cấy ghép implant tức thì. Thì tất cả những cái điều này có thể các bác sĩ đã nghe đến rồi, nhưng với kinh nghiệm của một người hơn 20 năm cấy ghép và có rất nhiều kinh nghiệm trong việc nghiên cứu, thì ở góc độ chia sẻ của các bác thì của góc độ chia sẻ của bác sĩ giáo sư Cho thì các bác sẽ nhận được những lợi ích gì. Thì ngay bây giờ thì em sẽ xin mời bác sĩ Cho bắt đầu cái phần trình bày của mình, và anh chị nhớ rằng là mình sẽ đeo tai nghe nếu như mà mình cần phiên dịch bằng tiếng Việt ạ.
Xin chào. 안녕하세요. Welcome to the Warantec IU Implants launching event, and I am Young Dan from South Korea. Now I'm working as an assistant professor in Department of Periodontology, Seoul National University. It is my great honor to hear as a presenter about the Warantec implant. And today's my lecture's title is the considerations for immediate implant placement. This is based on the Warantec IU implant systems. So let's move to the immediate implant placement first. As you know well, this is a procedure of immediate implant placement. We usually do immediate implant placement when the patient and also dentist wanna the quick best treatment, right? And also the bone is good conditions. So after the extraction, the tooth, and then clean the extraction socket and place the implant inside. And also nowadays the development of the technology, we can do the simultaneous the prosthesis in one day. In Korea, it is very famous, the one-day treatment with immediate implant placement and also implant the prosthesis delivery. And let's look at the time of implant placement and the healing event. If the bone is good condition, such as dental caries or other things or root fractures, we can do the implant placement simultaneously with the tooth extractions. So that is the immediate implantations. But the bone is not good conditions. That means it is not stable when the place the implant fixture inside. So we have to wait. The bone is healed. So we usually wait around 1 or 2 months for the soft tissue regenerations and also healing. And also we have to more wait when we want more the bone quality. So in that case, we usually say the delayed implant placement and also the late the implant placement. Let's see the treatment duration for dental implants. So normally after the tooth extractions, the healing time of the bone is usually the 3 months, right? And then after the place the implant fixture, the osseointegration time duration is almost 3 months. Nowadays, with the development of the technology, the time was reduced, but we usually wait after the tooth extraction and also placement of the implant. So if the patients and also the dentists want to reduce the time point, because the patient always want the quick and fast treatment, right? In Korea, 빨리빨리. We usually say the 빨리빨리. So in that time, we can reduce the time. In the first is with the immediate implant placement, and next is the implant surface modifications. So let's see the immediate implant placement. Even though the active separations in the maxillary anteriors, in the bridge teeth, we can do implant placement when the bone is a good conditions. So after the place implant, we do the gap filling with the bone graft materials or other the collagen plugs, etc. And then we can wait the soft tissue healing and deliver the prosthesis. So next 3 months, we can reduce the development of the surface modifications, right? Because we can enhance the osseointegrations. Nowadays, the surface is, the SLA surface is the most popular and good, right? But we also enhance the osseointegrations with the surface bioactivity using the growth factors. But I think that this part is under the research in the company or the university base. So I usually do the research about the surface modifications via the peptide applications and also gene therapy to enhance the osseointegrations. As you know, the BMP or wind, other things. So we can use these biomolecules, but it is under the development. So nowadays we usually use the SLA surface. So let's look the trend of implantologists. In the initial stages, we usually do the 2-stage implantations because the surface was not good. It was the smooth surface. So it took much time for the osseointegrations. So we have to put the picture inside and close the flap and wait almost 1 year, right? But with the development of the technology of surface modification, we could do the one-stage procedures with the healing abutment. But nowadays, we can do the immediate implant placement and also immediate loading. That makes us the easy and convenience the treatment and also the aesthetic and speedy treatment to the patient. So the immediate implantation is very common nowadays. So I want to share the surgical protocols for the immediate implantations. I always do the decisions after the decision of the tooth extraction and the implant. There is a two-way. I always try to do immediate implant placement because the patient and also I want the speedy treatment. But if it is not possible, it means the bone condition is not good to hold the implant pictures. In that case, I do the alveolar ridge preservations and then the delayed implant placement. So there is just two options for me, the immediate implantation and bone graft, the Ghép, or the ARP and delayed implant placement. So let's look at the clinical case. The patients had the severe dental caries. That was the secondary caries, the tooth number 26. The patient was a female, 41 years old. So I tried to do the immediate implantations because we can see that after the tooth extractions, the tooth root was broken, right? And we can see the very sound, the septums inside. So we can use this sound septum to get the primary the stability when I place the implant fixtures like this. And we can see the gaps in the root side. So after the place implant and connect with the healing abutment, and then I put bone graft material inside, and I covered with the collagen matrix like this, and then sutured. And then after 1 week, when I do stitch out, we can see the good, the soft tissue healing. So in this case, I usually use the collagenated bone and also collagen matrix because almost immediate implantations is the open healing because the soft tissue is not enough when we do immediate implantations. So I usually use the collagen biomaterials like as the collagenated bone and also collagen matrix. And so we can see the implants was placed in the wrapped the upper, the posterior part. And let's look at this another patient. This patient was the female, 67 years old. In her tooth number 27, we can see the bone resorption around the root. I think that this is due to the root cracks. Because almost endodontic treatment and also crown tooth have the root crack. Is it right? Do you agree that? So in that case, we can do the immediate implantations, but in this case, I did ARP because there was a severe bone defect. So I did the tooth extractions first, and then the alveolar ridge preservations, and then wait, and then do the delayed implant placement. Let's look at the clinical, the photos. So after the tooth extractions, and I clean the extraction circuit via the remover of the granulation tissues. In this condition, we can see there is no septums because of the severe bone resorption. So in that case, we cannot get enough the implant picture's stability. So we have to wait for the good bone qualities via the alveolar-rich preservations. So after the removal of granulation tissues, I put the bone graft material inside and covered with the collagen membrane. In that case, I do not touch the proximal flap. I just separate the gingival flap from the bone a little bit using the peristyle, the elevator, and then put the collagen matrix or membrane inside. And then when I do the stitch out after the 1 week of the surgery, we can see that the soft tissues healing is very good. And also after 1 month, we can see the soft tissue gingival healing is very good, cover the bone graft material well. And so after the 4 months, I place the implant, and then implant prosthetics were delivered, and also it is undergoing very good and healthy conditions. So I think that the key to get the success of the immediate implantation is the remaining bone, right? So in both two cases, the difference was the septum bones. So we can see the sound septum bones in the first case, but there is no in the second cases. So if we have the enough bone to hold implant picture well, that we can get the success in the immediate implant placement. So I always try to do immediate implant placement when the bone condition is good. Actually, I usually do the alveolar-rich preservation, ARP, especially in the maxillary posterior part. As you know well, after the tooth extractions, bone resorption is undergoing, right? So we have the resorption after the extraction from the crestal part. And also, after the extraction of maxillary, the posterior, we have the sinus pneumatizations. So it can reduce the bone height for the place implant. So prevent the sinus pneumatizations and also the resorption after tooth extraction. I usually do the ARP, especially in the maxillary posteriors. So I think that the ideal implant placement is these descriptions, because we do and we make the particular bone ranks with the crestal part, the GBR, and also do not assign elevations via the ARP. So we can make the harmonious, the crown level and also the alveolar level with the surrounding tooth. So I always try to make the normal, the crown and implant ratios using the GBR and also ARP, not sinus elevations. So I would like to explain about ARP. Do you usually do the ARP to the patients? I usually do when I cannot do the immediate implantations. So it is well known that after the tooth extractions, the alveolar-rich is reserved, the vertically and also horizontally. So if we do not do ARP simultaneous when we do the tooth extractions, we cannot get enough the bone height or width for the place the implant. So I always and I usually try to do ARP when the bone is not good and the bone volume is not enough. So these patients visited our department for the place implant after the tooth extraction in the local clinics. But we can see the bone width in the missing side is very narrow. It was almost 1 or 2 millimeters. Then we cannot place implant, right? So in the local clinic, the dentist suggests he cannot place implant because the alveolar ridge. So the dentist suggests and recommend the crown and bridge, but he didn't want. So he came to the dental hospital for the place implant, but it took about 1.5 years because there is not enough bone. So I thought that what if that dentist did the ARP at the time, he could get enough bone for the place implant. So I always try to do the ARP to place implant well. So I recommend the ARP when the alveolar ridge defect is a severe conditions. So this is my procedures for the ARP. So after the tooth extractions, when we cannot do the immediate implantations, after tooth extraction, clean the extraction socket via the remover of granulation tissues and I usually use collagenated bone and covered with a collagen membrane or matrix. And then I usually do the open healing. Do not do primary closure. So don't touch the proximal part because we need enough keratinized tissue around the implant. So I usually always try to make an open healing when I do ARP and also immediate implantations. Let's look at the ARP with the collagen membranes. So after the tooth extractions, clean the extraction socket and put the bone graft material inside and covered with the collagen membrane. And I do the open healing. I just do the one suturing, that is hidden X sutures. So I usually apply the Copex for the patient convenience and also the pain relief. The patients always say that they had pain and also put infections when I do the open healing. So I usually apply the Copex like this. And 1 week later, when I do the stitch out, we can see the soft tissue is healed well. And after the 1 month, we can see the gingiva is well healed, covering the bone graft material inside. So I would like to introduce the hidden X sutures. So compare the X sutures. In the case of X suture, the needle go inside and then come out and go inside and come out. Then the X is made over the gingiva. However, in the case of hidden X suture, we can see that the X is made between the gingiva and also bone. So this hidden X make the stable the pressure, the collagen membrane. So it can help the hold the extraction socket well and also press the collagen membrane or collagen matrix. So it can help us the stable regenerations when we do the open healings. So I always use the hidden X suture. And this is a case, the ARP with the collagen matrix. In the past, I usually use the collagen membrane for the open healing, but nowadays, I usually use the collagen matrix. So the same procedure from the tooth extractions and the removal, the granulation tissues, and put the collagenated bone inside, but I used the collagen matrix. Collagen matrix is thicker than collagen membrane. And the collagen membrane has the thickness, but the collagen matrix has a porous structure, so it has more thickness than collagen membrane. But the collagen matrix has a porous structures. It can help the soft tissue healing. but it is very thick, so we need more string. So I usually do the more 2 or 3 hidden axis sutures to hold the collagen matrix. Because based on this clinical evidence, I usually use the collagen matrix when I do the open healing. Can you see the difference? This is after the 1 month of ARP when I use the collagen membrane and collagen matrix. So both cases shows the soft tissue regeneration and healing, but we can see in the case of the collagen matrix, the gingival, the thickness is more good and also shows the stable, the gingival healing. So nowadays, I usually use collagen matrix when I do the open healings in the case of the ARP and also the immediate implantations. Because that was just the clinical evidence from my patients, so I try to get the evidence from the scientific level. So I always try to make the scientific evidence from the animal models. I usually use the beagle dog models. So we made the dehiscence defect and did the ARP and put the same bone graft materials, and just the difference was the covering with the collagen membrane and collagen matrix. So we can clearly see the difference of thickness, the membrane and matrix, right? So collagen matrix has more thicker. So it can help the soft tissue regenerations. So after 20 weeks, we did the analysis using the 3D digital scanning and also micro-CT and histologic analysis. And this micro-CT analysis shows that when we use the collagen matrix, we can get more good quality and quantity of bone regenerations. And also, in this, the histologic data, we can see clearly the soft tissue regeneration is better in the case of matrix. We can see this part, this is the red pack. It is expressed in the good and healthy condition of soft tissue regenerations. And also, in the underneath bone regeneration was more good in the use of a collagen matrix. So nowadays, I usually use the collagen matrix, not the collagen membrane. Now, I would like to introduce about the Warantec implant, because this is a Warantec implant launching event, right? So you know well that because our CEO, the Sim, Imbosim, also introduced about that. Let's see the brand story of Warantec again. It was started from the 1995. That was the Korean Implant Development Research Project. That was G7 project. And in this research project, the 3 dental university, this is the top 3 in Korea. Seoul National University, and also Yonsei University and Catholic University. Our senior, the professors did and performed the G7 project. And then their inspirations, the pioneers of our senior professors made the Warantec companies. So let's see the brand story again. In that time, around the 2000, there was a big boom of the implant in Korea. So we can see the mega brand of Korea company started from these seasons. So we can see the Warantec started from the 21, and its applications in the clinic is over 20 years, almost 25 years. So it has very long history. And in the domestic and also international, the clinical outcomes of the Warantec implants is very good. I believe And I recommend to use the Warantec implant because the Warantec implant has a good reputation. And also, that reputation is supported by many research and also the clinical outcomes. So today, I would like to introduce the IU systems. That is today's launching implant systems. This implant surface is SLA. We can see the similar surface with the Straumann implant. So we can trust the implant surface for the osseointegrations. And also, it is very easy to place the implant because it has a self-tapping buoy-shaped thread, and also it has increasing thread depth. So I think that it is very good for the immediate implantations because we need the self-tapping for the holding the implant inside in the not enough bone when we do immediate implantations. And also it has the 11-degree internal conical hexagonal connections for the robust connection, so it can give us very stable connections when we do prosthetic deliveries. And let's look at this. We can see from the apical part, because it has either cutting edge in the apical part, so it can mix a rest stress, and also it gives us a self-tapping. So it is very good for the immediate implantations. When the implant is placed more in the middle part, it has the combination of sharp thread and the tapered body designs. So it can make more insertion torque. And in the crest part, it has the combination of scale thread and also straight line design. So it can reduce the insertion torque when we place implant in the crest part. So there is no blocking when we do implant. So we do not have to use torque wrench by manual method. So it is very convenient, and it is very easy to place implant when we do immediate implantations. Let's look at again. In the apical part, it has a powerful self-tapping and sharp thread. So it is very good. It makes very easy to get hold in the apical part, especially when we do the immediate implantations. And in the medial part, it has inner taper and outer straight combinations. So in the soft bone, the inner taper effect provides a sufficient holding pulse. And in the hard bone, this outer straight line allows you to control excessively. And then in the crestal part, it has the marginal bone conservations. So the bone loss can be prevented by minimizing the marginal bone compression. So it is very good for the clinics. So I recommend to use these IU systems when you do immediate implantation and also the normal implantations. And let's see the IU, the surgical kit. It is very fancy because it has very important drilling kit, drilling the drills. In my experience, it is very good because it has these drills. This is bone collecting drills. I usually use this like this. So in this case, because we can get the bone with these drills, we don't need any more the artificial bone graft materials. So it is very convenient and very efficient when we do the immediate implantations. So I recommend to use the IU surgical kit with the bone collecting drill, and you can get the enough bone for the implant placement. And also when we do the drill with this bone collecting drills, it can minimize the heat heat generations during drilling. So it is very good for the patient and also to us. Okay, well, let's see the IU implant cases when I do the immediate implantations. The patient was male, 64 years old. The upper anteriors, the tooth number 21, was the supra eruption state, and the tooth mobility was 2 degree. And I thought that it was due to the root crack, and it induced a chronic localized periodontitis. So I plan to do immediate implantations. So we can see the supra erupted tooth due to the root crack and the localized the periodontitis. So I extracted the tooth like this, a traumatic extraction. And we can see I didn't touch the proximal part, right? Because I will do the open healing to save the enough the keratinized tissues. And I used bone collecting drill like this, so I could get enough bone for filling the buccal gaps. So we can see that implants was placed well like this in the panoramic view and also the city views. So I always try to save the buccal wall, right? You know well, right? Because in the case of the immediate implantations, buccal wall is very important for the aesthetics, especially in the anteriors. So when I do the surgery, we can see the implant placed well. It is located more palatal side, and I kept the buccal side. I put the collected bone that was autogenous bone using the bone collecting drills. And then after 1 week of the surgery, we can see the soft tissue regeneration is good. And also 1 month later, its condition is very good. And then prosthesis was delivered like this. So we can see that the buccal bone is maintained well, and also the implant condition is very good. So I recommend to use the IU implant system when you do immediate implantations. You can get enough the initial stability, and also you can get enough bone using the bone collecting drills. And let's see the key points of the immediate implant. It is very important to get the aesthetics and also the stability when we do the immediate implantations. Which is better? The first or second? Which is better? Can you raise your hand? This? No. That? I think that is better than this, but I think that the most important part is this buccal side, right? Because this is anteriors, so we have to make thick buccal wall. So in this case is also the buccal wall is not thick. It looks very thin, right? So I think that we have to make more palatary. We have to do the bodily movement when we do the immediate implantations in the anteriors. So let's look at the implant picture position at anteriors. So I always focus on the buccal side, this part. So we have to make more, get bone at the buccal side like this. So this is the ideal positions with a much bone volume at the buccal side. But in this case, it can acceptable, right? But in this case, it is very wrong positions because this thin buccal bone will be disappeared, right? Because after the tooth extractions, the buccal bone will be disappeared, right? So we have to make a ideal position of the implant pictures. So let's look at this method. So to get the initial stability, we have to make strong point when we use the initial drill or guided drill. So we have to put the initial drill or guided drill like this, and then we have to make another directions after making the initial drilling, and then we have to move the drill like this and then go inside more, right? So we have to make more lingual and palatal side with bodily movement. Then we can get the enough buccal bone volumes. And we have to 1 or 2 millimeter lower positions because we know that this alveolar bone will be disappeared horizontally and vertically after the tooth extractions. So we have to put more inside 1 or 2 millimeters the buccal bone or the palatal or lingual bone. So it can make us the aesthetic and also good position of the pictures. So it can make good clinical outcomes in the anteriors because the aesthetics is the most important part in the anteriors, right? So we have to make good picture positions at anteriors. Like this. After place implant, the implant picture should be located more palatal side. So when we do immediate implantations, the implant picture have to just at palatal side, and at the buccal side we have to have the gap, right? If it is opposite, that is wrong. So you have to do replantations and do place implant picture again, more palatally, more lingually when we do the anterior part immediate implantations. So when we have these conditions, we can put the bone graft materials in the buccal side or the collagen sponge inside. It is according to the gap size. And let's look at the implant picture position at posteriors. In the posteriors, we always have to use the septum bones, right? So, right as we have to use these septum bones. So we can place the implant picture in the center exactly, right? So you can see the implant is placed well in the center exactly. Like this, you have to use these septums. So if we do the tooth extraction, there's no septum, no sound septum, the percentage of the immediate implantation is reduced. So we have to do the atraumatic extractions to get the sound septums for the immediate implantation like this. So let's look at that. So we have to use this septum for the place implant. So approach to the septum first like this, around the 45-degree directions, and change the direction like this and go inside more, right? Because we already know well the bone will be resolved, right? So we have to make the initial drilling to get the initial stability like this, number one, and then change the directions, go straight down 1 or 2 millimeter more, right? Because due to the bone resorption after the tooth extractions. So in this case also, we have to locate the implant picture more lingually and more palatally for the shape, the buccal bone volumes. I always recommend to do the good aesthetics in the anteriors, right? Because anteriors is almost the aesthetic point. So when we do the immediate implantations, we can get the buccal distance after the prosthetic deliveries. It is the main cause is the thin buccal bone or gingiva. That is the main cause, but in the case of the bone resorptions after the tooth extractions, in the case of immediate implantations, right? And in the case of the picture positioning errors, when you do not get enough buccal bone, you can have the buccal distance like this. So in these situations, we have to decide what to do when we meet the buccal distance in the anteriors. So the option 1 is guided bone regenerations, and option 2 is soft tissue regeneration without the bone graft anymore. The option 1 is GBR, but I do not do GBR because we have to think about that. This crest part is already contaminated, and also it has unfavorable bone conditions, right? So even though we put bone graft material inside, the bone regeneration is not good. So in this case, I usually do the soft tissue regeneration per the aesthetics point. So let's see this patient. The patient's complaint was she had a pain and also gingival color changed to gray. So we can see this part, right? Even though her condition is the temporary prosthetic conditions. He said that he got the immediate implantation in the local clinic, and the doctor, the dentist, tried to do final prosthetics, but she had the complaint about the pain and also grayish colors. We can imagine that the buccal bone is not there, right? We can think that the buccal bone was there when the dentist do the immediate implantations, but that bone is disappeared, right? And also she had a thin biotypes. So when I open the flap, we can see the buccal distance in the crest part. And also the implant picture is located more buccally in the crest part. So we can think that this is the error in the implant picture positionings. So we have to make more buccal bone volumes with the bodily movement of the drill when we do drilling. So we have to have enough buccal bone. So in that case, I do not put bone graft materials because I don't trust the bone is regenerated in that conditions, right? So in that case, the patient just want to no pain and also not grayish color gingiva, the healthy gingiva. So I just apply the collagen matrix inside and sutured and then follow-up. So the before and after, we can see the grayish color is turned to the pink color with the thick, healthy gingiva. So she agreed with that and no more pain and no more complaints. So the process was delivered in the local clinic. So let's look at the periodontal biotype modifications, PBM. That is the method of the soft tissue regenerations. So the patients have the thin gingiva tends to have the thin bone at the buccal side. So the patient usually has the bony penetration and also distance. So in the case of thin biotype, it can induce and gingival recessions. So as a periodontist, I usually do to make a thin gingiva to thick gingiva. That is the PBM, periodontal biotype modification. So in the case of implant, especially in the anterior, especially in the immediate implantations, the bone was there when we do surgery, but as time goes by, the buccal bone is disappeared. And also, the patient has the thin gingiva. We can see the exposure of the picture. It reduced the aesthetic point. So the patient complaint is the aesthetic point. In this case, we can do the PBM using the various techniques. In the department of periodontology, we usually do the autograft, like as FGG. It means the pre-gingival graft. We can get the FGG from the palate, right? Because it has the thick layer, including the epithelial layer and also the connective tissue layer. So we can get a big increase of gingival thickness, but the color and texture in the palate and also buccal side is totally different. So it can make inharmonious of color and texture. That is the disadvantage. So the golden standard for the PBM is connective tissue graft, CTG. It can give us the harmonious color and texture because that is the inner part of the CTG. So after applying the CTG and we cover the buccal flaps over that, so we can have the harmonious color and texture. But it needs more skills when we get the CTG than FGG. But the main is the patient pain and discomfort from the palate part. The patient always complain about the pain, not buccal side, in the palate. So that makes us the very stressful conditions, right? So we usually do the palate-free selections, right? It can give us the stress-free conditions to the patient and also the dentist. So in that case, I usually use the collagen matrix like this because there is no donor site. I do not touch the palate, so it can not make a pain or discomfort. But it has a little bit relapse than CTG or FGG. But it is very convenient using the collagen matrix, not the autograft. So nowadays, I usually use the connective collagen matrix when I do the PBM. So as you know well, the brand, the Guy3, right? They produce the mucograft and fibroguide. In the case of mucograft, it is suggested to use the open space instead of FGG. And in the case of fibroguide, they suggest to use in the closed space instead of CTG. So I usually use the collagen matrix instead of the autograft. So we can see that structures. We can see the porous structure and also the thick. The thickness is very thick than collagen membrane. So, and after the hydration, it can make expansion a little bit. So when we do the FGG or CTG, we have to make more size because the tissue is shrinkage. But in the case of use of the collagen matrix, you can just cut just a side or the smaller side because it can have the expansion after the hydrations. So I'd like to introduce the simplified tunneling techniques using the particular incisions when I do the PBM. So because when we do coronally advanced flap, when we do the PBM, it is very not good, right? Because the gravity direction is the down direction, right? So in that case, we have to hold the coronally advanced flap upside. But it is very difficult. So when we usually do the wiring and resin applications to hold the coronally advanced flap, but in this case, we do not do like that. We just use the vertical incision and make the tunneling that is full thickness and then put the collagen matrix inside, that's all. So I would like to share the movie for the particular incisions, making the particular incisions and make a tunneling inside. In that case, we can do the full thickness. And to cover the gingival recessions, we just do the suturing like this, closure, for the closure of the gingival recessions. Look at this, the gingival recession is disappeared. And then to make more thick gingiva, we can apply the collagen matrix inside. So after the suturing at the gingival recession, we can put the collagen matrix inside like this. So when the implant, the gingival recession around the dental implant or the natural tooth, we can make the PBM to enhance the aesthetical point like this very easily and very simply. So this, I would like to share the techniques for the PBM. So let's think about the mechanism of the collagen matrix. So I told you the collagen matrix has the porous structures. That is the kick of the collagen matrix. So these porous structures induce the great cell ingrowth and also easy vascularizations. So combine the cell ingrowth and the vascularizations can make a good tissue integration and also the regenerations. So I usually use the collagen matrix, and people ask me about that. Then this collagen matrix changed to what? Guess what? This collagen matrix turns to the connective tissue. So we don't need to get the autogenous CTG from the palate, making the patient pain, and also we don't need to hear the complaint from the patients about the pain, right? So this collagen matrix will be connective tissue. So it is very easy and simple way to do the PBM. Because that I told you the CTG has been accepted as golden standard, right? And also collagen matrix has some relapse. But nowadays with the development of the technology to make the collagen matrix, I think that there's no more relapse. So that was just my thinking. So I tried to make a scientific evidence using the Beagle models. So I used the collagen matrix and compared that, and I did the Beagle animal model experiment in the Beagle. And I compared the collagen matrix and the connective tissue from the dog's palate and analyze it with the histometric analysis and the histologic and also volumetric analysis. This data shows that in the gingival thickness and volume, the connective tissue from the dog's palate and also collagen matrix has a similar outcomes. So I saw that there's no more relapse in the use of the collagen matrix. And also we have many clinical data using the collagen matrix in the natural tooth and also around the implant to enhance the aesthetics. So we do the publications that is a retrospective analysis. So I will follow up the patient continuously. And let's think about the bone remodeling after the immediate implantations. As you know well, the primary stability is from the old bone, right? And also the secondary stability is originated from new bone. And there is the cross point, right? And also this period has very not enough bone condition. So after the immediate implantations, do not touch a healing abutment strongly, because in that period, the bone quantity and also quality is a little bit low. So it can make a spinning when you touch the healing abutment very strongly. So I suggest do not touch healing abutment around 1 month after the immediate implantations. And also, we always think about the soft tissue regeneration and also healing after the tooth immediate implantation, because that is open healing, right? So I usually use the collagen sponge or PRF membrane and also special device. So if the buccal gap is not big, in that case, I just use the collagen sponge or nothing. In that case, I just put the autogenous bone using the bone collecting drills of the IU implant surgical kit. So it was enough. So the buccal gap is not big, just do that. And if you want to improve the soft tissue, the regeneration and healing, you can use the PRF like this. You can use PRF clot inside, or you can make the PRF membrane like this. So it can help the soft tissue healings after immediate implantations. And also another the special device is the silicone sheet to block the open healed site like this. So we can this device in the healing abutment, and it can help the soft tissue healing around the dental implant when we do the immediate implantations. And also, we always think about the immediate implantation in the case of the inflammatory conditions, right? In the case of dental caries, it is not a big deal, right? But in most cases, it has active inflammations, right? Like as buccal sinus tracts from the root cracks. So we always think and wonder, is it enough? Is it okay to place implant when the site has active suppression? So let's see this. So endocrine tooth is, I think, that one of the most immediate implantation case, right? So in the case of the endo and crown, I think that in the case of post, it is a nail, and also the occlusion purse is the hammer, right? So it can make root cracks. Then we have to do the implant placement. But in that case, almost case have the enough bone to place the implant picture immediately. So I usually do the immediate implantations in the endo, crown, treatment, teeth, tooth, having the root cracks, even though it has the active aspirations. This patient was the 37 years old female, and 10 years ago, the tooth number 46 had endodontic treatment and crown treatment. And now she had the periapical lesion and the buccal sinus tract making the pus. So I diagnosed as a root crack or fracture inside and tried to place implant immediately, even though it has the active aspirations with the pus discharge. So after the tooth extractions, atraumatically, right? We have to save the septum and then place implant and did the gap filling, and we can see the soft tissue, the healing as well, and also the implant process was delivered well and followed up and good conditions. And also, these patients also have the active aspirations with the pus. That was also the endodontic treatment and crown tooth. It was also the root crack and fracture, right? And we can see the buccal sinus tract like this. It means it has a pus inside. In that case, we also wonder, is it okay to place implant? There is an inflammatory sign and also the pus inside, but I do immediate implantations like this. So because the lower, the posterior has the separated root, I cut the root like this to save the septums and place implant and put bone graft material inside and covered with the collagen sponge, and the prosthesis was delivered and maintained well. And also, this patient has the buccal sinus tracts. The pus came out. It means active aspirations, right? But the bone was enough to hold implant picture. So in this case, I also try to do immediate implantations. So after the tooth extraction and place implant and the gap filling with the collagen sponge and the soft tissue healing was well, and implant was maintained well over 8 years. So I think that don't worry and don't wonder about the immediate implantation in the inflammatory state, because I had many clinical cases, so I publicated the case series about the immediate implant placement into impacted site. So it shows that the immediate implant may be indicated for the replacing tooth due to the chronic pre-apical lesions with endodontic failure. But when we do the appropriate, the preoperative procedures for the cleaning, the extraction socket is okay for the immediate implantation in the inflammatory regions. So other systematic review told us that the meticulous development of socket and also the contamination of the site and also the proper usage of antibiotics is enough, and it is okay when you do the immediate implantations in the inflammatory site. And also other animal study and human studies supported this about the immediate implantation into the impacted site. And I usually use the antibiotics, the local delivery systems, that is the minocycline. As you know, the minocycline covers the both gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. So it is very useful to use this minocycline ointment. I usually use these types ointment. So after the tooth extraction, I cleaned the extraction socket with saline and put this minocycline ointment inside. And also when I do the GBR or ARP after the tooth extraction simultaneously, I usually use this minocycline ointment to prevent the contaminations and also reduce my concern and my worry about the inflammations after the surgery. Nowadays in Korea, many dentists use the PDRN. Do you know the PDRN? Is it popular in Vietnam? right? No. Let's look at the PDRN together. PDRN is polydeoxyribonucleotide. It is the low molecular DNA fragment extracted from salmon. So we usually say that salmon injections. And it is very biocompatible because it is from the salmon, right? And it has the almost similar human DNA, that is almost 95%. And FDA administrate about the wound healing and the tissue regeneration because it has the function in anti-inflammatory and also the tissue regenerations. So in Korea, many dentists try to use this PDRN in the case of inflammations and also in the case of tissue regeneration. Actually, almost dental treatment is anti-inflammatory treatment and also the tissue regeneration treatment. And similar to the PDRN, the PN is there. PN is polynucleotide. This is also DNA extracted from salmon, but it has more longer. So it has high molecular level, and it is usually said that Regeneron that is used in the skin care, the skin boosters. And because it has a large molecular weight than PDRN, it can attract the water. So in Korea, in the skincare, this PN is widely used as a filler. So let's compare the PDRN and PN. The PDRN is good for the anti-inflammation and also tissue regeneration. So it can enhance the wound healing and also cell proliferations and also the tissue recovery. But in the case of PN, that is usually used in the skincare for the anti-aging. So in the K-beauty, it is very, very, very popular, the K-beauty in the Korean and also internationally. The PN is widely used for the anti-aging. So dental clinical application of PDRN is the targeting for the anti-inflammations and also the tissue regenerations. Because I need the scientific evidence, I did the research in vitro and in vivo using the PDRN. So I tested the cell proliferation and migrations, which is stimulated by the PDRN and also the hyaluronic acid. So we can see in the MTT assay, the cell is proliferated more with the PDRN. And also in the cell migration assay, you can see that PDRN make more cell migration. So we can think that the PDRN is very effective in the cell proliferation and also migration. So it can help the wound healings. And I checked the collagen depositions using the serious red staining and also ELISA. So we can see that PDRN makes more collagen than hyaluronic acid. And also the ELISA shows that it make more collagens in the PDRN and HA. And also in the Alcian blue staining shows that the proteoglycan deposition is increased when we treated the PDRN. So with this data, we can conclude that the PDRN has the proliferative effect. And also we check the anti-inflammatory effect using the Western blot and ELISA. We can see that PDRN has the anti-inflammatory effects. So we published about this in vitro data in the JPIS in this year. And I wonder that because when I do just extractions, I put the collagen sponge inside to enhance the proliferations and also the gingival tissue regeneration and healing. So I try to do the mix the PDRN with collagen sponges. So I did in vivo experiment in the Beagle models, in the extraction circuit models. And this data shows that when we do not put anything that is just a natural healing, it shows the increased the healing, but the maximum was around 80%. But when we put collagen sponge inside, it can enhance the gingival healing. And also when we mixed the PDRN to the collagen sponge, it can help the gingival tissue healings. So it is very useful to use the collagen sponge when you do the extraction, when you do apply the after the tooth extractions. So I usually apply the PDRN like this, the gingival injection directly or the absorptions in the collagen matrix. So I want to share the clinical outcomes. So these patients had a chronic periodontitis. I think that is due to the root tooth cracked after the endodontic treatment and also crown. So I plan to do the immediate implantations, but because that was very chronic conditions, there is no buccal bone, but that was the intra-circuit granulation tissue at buccal site. So it is, we know that when the condition is the chronic, when this is the chronic conditions, the bone is disappears. But at that site, the intra-circuit granulation tissue is there. So we can meet the very thick gingiva with the granulation tissue. But this is a granulation tissue. You usually remove the granulation tissue, but don't do that because we can use this very easily and very convenient because we can use as a cover like this. So after placed implant, I put the bone graft material because there is no buccal wall and covered with the intra-socket granulation tissue, IGT, like this. So when I use this IGT, I usually use the PDRN as injection method because this is a granulation tissue, right? The granulation tissue means it has some inflammatory sign. So to reduce the inflammations, I inject PDRN inside. So we can see when I do the stitch out 1 week later, we can see the soft tissue healing is very well and implant prosthesis delivered after 2 months of implantations. So I did the quick treatment in the case of the not enough buccal bone and also the severe chronic conditions. And also look at this. How will you do in these patients? It shows very severe bone defect, right? Around tooth number 43. And also there is some root resorption around the teeth. So when we see these patients, we can think that the bone regeneration first via GBR and then delayed implantation, right? But I did immediate implantations. We can see the very severe conditions with the severe gingival recession due to the severe bone defect. That was the very chronic state, chronic conditions. So because this is a chronic conditions, we can meet the intra-circuit granulation tissue like this after the tooth extraction. So to get more the IGT, I did incision more lingually like this, and I separated the buccal side, the granulation tissue like this. Can you see the IGT? So we can use this IGT to cover the alveolar ridge after the GBR. And also, I injected the PDRN because that is the granulation tissue. It can have the inflammatory sign, right? So I used this IGT and also the injected the PDRN at buccal side. So after place implant like this, and also I applied the collagen matrix, not collagen membrane, because even though I use IGT, we can think the some point of the open healing, right? So I place implant and put the bone graft material inside and covered with the collagen matrix and also covered with the IGT like this, and also apply the co-pack like that. And 1 week later, we can see the soft tissue is undergoing the healing. And after 1 month, we can see that the soft tissue regenerated and healed well. So after 3 months, I did second OP, and I could get the good clinical outcomes like this. So after the prosthetic delivery, the condition is maintained well. So even though it has very big and severe bone defect in the chronic site, we can use the IGT, right? With reduce the inflammations using the PDRN, we can do very quick and fast and safe treatment using the immediate implantations. So we can compare before and after. Before, it has very severe bone defect, but after, it has well reconstructions, right? That is just took 4 months, right? So to use proper the soft tissue and the proper the biomolecule like as the PDRN, and so the good self-tapping implant fixtures, immediate implantation, we can get the good clinical outcomes like this. So we can see the before and after, right? So we could get the soft tissue and also hard tissue together. And now let's look at the long-term survival of the dental implant in Seoul National University Dental Hospital. Because the Seoul National University Dental Hospital is the biggest dental hospital in Korea, and almost implant blend products is used in our hospitals. So I wonder that about the survival rate of all the brands. So I searched and did the retrospective study and published the result in the JPs. So the Warantec's one plant, the one plant naming is the past naming, and now you can meet the UT, IT, or IU, etc. And one plant implant got the first place because of the high implant survival rate. There was almost 98%, and also in the case of the prosthetics, it was almost 99%. So it took the first place in our Seoul National University Dental Hospital. So it was the long-term study over 10 years. So I can recommend to use because it has very good survival rate with the good clinical outcomes over the 25 years in Seoul National University Dental Hospital. So I did the retrospective study using that. We can see the survival rate around 98%. And also, there is some implant failure, right? But it was almost around after the 5 years due to the peri-implantitis, right? So we have to check about the implant maintenance because almost the region of the implant failure is the peri-implantitis. So I will present about the implant maintenance after that. And also another brand is the Restorer. This is from the USA, the Keystone Dental. And the survival rate was 92%, and also the survival rate was 95%. It's lower than the Warantec, right? And also, you know, the OSTEM. This is sometimes higher than the internationally. It has the around 95% the survival rate. So it was also lower than Warantec's implant. And you know the Dentium, right? You use the Dentium in Vietnam. And this shows a little bit more the OSTEM, but it was also lower than Warantec. So Warantec is the first place for the good clinical conditions and outcomes, and also the highest survival rate. And do you know the Luna? Nowadays, this is advertised from the Sinhung. It shows the 96% and 97%, but it is also lower than Warantec. So I can say that the Warantec implant is the best in Seoul National University and also the internationally, right? Because it had the highest survival rate with a long-term result. So this is the papers about the retrospective study in our dental hospitals. So in the one-plant implant, it has the external hexa and internal octa and one body. It shows that in the case of a one-body implant, it showed the 100% survival rate. And in the external hexa shows that 98%, and internal octa shows that 97%. And it is the variables about the patient informations, the everything, the female, male, and age and diameter, ranks, and everything. We searched and found out that there is some implant failure. It was almost the internal types. It was the implant picture tearing. But nowadays, I think that with the development of technologies, no more implant picture tearing in the use of internal types, like as IU implant. So the conclusion was the microthread in the crest part, the implant neck was found to be very favorable for implant survivor with stable clinical outcomes. So I think that the Warantec implant is very stable and will give you the good clinical outcomes. So I recommend to use the IU systems. And this is the prospective study in our dental hospital. That is the IU implant in immediate implant placement. As I told you, because the IU system has very strong apical part with the self-tapping, so it is very good for the immediate implantation. So in our dental hospital, we did the post-market clinical follow-up PMCF study. It was the Warantec IU system, and indication was immediate implant placement, and the number of the patients was 20. So this is a study flow chart. So enrollment was the number of enrollment was 21, and one patient was dropped out because of no informed consent, and we did the study with 20 patients. And we did 1 year follow-up and analyzed and published these studies. So this is a study protocol from the visit 0 to visit 8. We did the intraoral scan and the impressions and also the ISQ value test and CBCT taking and IO, the radiograph takings. So this is procedures. So we did the immediate implantation like that and did the micro-CT data analysis and also the volumetric analysis. So like this, we evaluated intraoral scan and radiographs. So we did the volumetric analysis, and also we checked the gingival recession because it was immediate implantation at the anterior part. And also we did radiographic analysis to check the bone, marginal bone loss after the immediate implantations. So this is the clinical informations. And we can see the soft tissue volume is maintained well. And also the gingival recession was not there. There was not a big deal. And also CBCT analysis that shows that the bone, the marginal bone is well maintained after the 1 year follow-up. And also we can check the distal and major marginal bone loss. It was good. So with this analysis, we could summarize and conclude that the gingival margin and marginal bone loss remained well maintained throughout the follow-up. We followed the 1 year for the PMCF study, but we are going the more follow-up, and we will do continuously to give you guys the clinical result about the evidence, the use of Warantec IU implants. And also the lower the bull shape, I told you, right? That makes the self-tappings enable the favorable initial stability when we do the immediate implantations. And the aesthetic outcomes were good with the minimal gingival, the recession, and marginal bone loss. So I always focus on the aesthetics in the case of the anteriors, right? So because the IU implant shows that the great clinical outcome with the little or no the minimal gingival recession and bone loss, so it can help you guys the dental applications in the immediate implantations. So as I told you, the long-term follow-up is undergoing over the 1 year because it was started from 2021, is over the 3 or 4 years. So I will follow up more and I will give you more continuous data in the next time. So to fully assess the impact of strategy design and connect on the aesthetics will be tested more with more the clinical data. And let's think about the dental implant proximity to a tooth. Do you have any experience when you do the immediate implantations? The implant picture is contact to the adjacent tooth, or the picture is located too tight to next natural tooth. Do you have? I have. So this is my patient. I did like this. When I do the immediate implantations, we can make like this, right? Because there is not enough bone, and also there is some slide, right? So it is very difficult to make the positions properly, right? So in that case, we can meet the next natural tooth like this. We can contact the root, or we can make very tight distance to the next natural tooth. So because I had some experience like this, and also I wonder about the natural tooth conditions, right? Because I wonder, do I make the natural tooth pain, and also it can induce endodontic treatment? Oh my God, right? So I try to find out every cases in our dental hospital. So with that data, I published the papers, and I screened the 3,000 cases based on the panoramic views, because I know that not my own experience. Everyone has the experience, right? So I searched every cases in our dental hospital. That was almost the 3,000 based on the panoramic view. And then I found that almost 100 cases, it was 98 cases, it was the implant root proximity or direct contact that is based on the periapical radiograph. Because there is some error where the difference between the panoramic view and periapical view. So after screening with the panoramic view, I selected the rare cases based on the periapical X-ray view. So we found 43 cases in the case of implant root to proximity or direct contact. Almost cases, around the 31 cases was proximity. Proximity means the under the 1 millimeter between the implant picture and natural tooth root. And in the case of direct contact was the 12 cases. It shows the cross in the periapical X-ray views. So we did measurement like this. In this case, the positive value between the implant picture and the root, it is positive, it was the proximity, right? In the case of the negative value, because of cross the implant picture and natural tooth, it was the direct contact. At first, I wonder about the natural tooth symptom, but I found out that the main problem was not the tooth symptom of the natural tooth. The main problem was the peri-implantitis. Can you imagine that? Right? Because the position and location, implant positioning had error, right? So it can not make good prosthesis, right? So it can induce peri-implantitis. So tooth symptom was not much, but almost case was peri-implantitis and almost cases was anterior. Because I think that we usually do immediate implantation at anterior part, so it can make the more peri-implantitis and more immediate implant cases. And also, the natural tooth can have a symptom when the distance is closed. So if the implant is close the next natural tooth or it contacts with the next natural tooth, we have to replant and repositioning properly, right? Or we have to do delayed implantation if you do not have the initial stability. And also we have to check in the periapical X-ray because there is a difference. The same condition in the panoramic, we can see that it looks like a cross, right? But in the periapical X-ray, there is some space between the implant picture and natural tooth. And in the lower part, okay, also, it looks like a cross, right? But it has the space between picture and natural tooth. So we have to check the distance between the implant picture and natural tooth with the panoramic view. So nowadays we can use the portable X-ray, right? So it is very easy and simple to check the distance between implant and natural tooth. So implant tooth proximity and the contact are iatrogenic factors, right? We make these problems. So we have to try to not make the iatrogenic factors. So I suggest use the surgical set and also to check the distance using the periapical radiographs. It is very important for the peri-implant health and also the proper positioning of the implant pictures. And for the long-term success of the implant, it is very important, the implant treatment, right? So let's see the peri-implant health. It is similar to the natural tooth, right? In the case of the peri-implant mucositis, it is similar with gingivitis. It is located gingival part inflammations. But in the periimplantitis, it makes the bone rust around the pictures. So it is similar with periodontitis, right? So we have to do the concentration to care the peri-implant health. So peri-implant health means there's no erythema or BOP or swelling or aspiration, any inflammation, right? And we usually do the probing around the implant, but just once probing is not important, and that cannot give us any information, right? Because the probing depths around the dental implants we make, right? That is not the natural tooth. In the case of natural tooth, 3 or 4 millimeter probing depths is a normal and healthy conditions, but in the dental implants, it's not. The importance is the observation of inflammatory sign, and increasing probing depths when you do probing is important. So when I do the probing first, it was 3 millimeter. And then 1 month later, it was increased to 5 millimeters. It is a problem, right? It means it is undergoing the inflammations, making more deep probing. It means the bone rust, the underlays, the gingiva. So we have to check the peri-implant, the health. So peri-implantitis is the progression of the bone rust, right? And also its bone rust progression is faster than periodontitis. And also patient cannot feel because there is no sensation, right? That is not a natural tooth. So in this case, the patient cannot know. So we have to do follow-up, and we have to record check after the prosthetic delivery. And this is the flow chart of treatment of peri-implant disease, right? So when the implant has the mobility, we have 2 explantations, right? Because that is the failure of the osseointegrations. But if it is not mobile, we have to do the treatment, either non-surgical treatment or surgical treatment. We usually start with non-surgical treatment and then decide to do whether the surgical procedure, and also we decide to do rejective surgery or the reconstructive surgery. That is dependent on the bone conditions. And we can think about the non-surgical treatment is mechanical method. That is very basic, right? And also we can use the antiseptics and also antibiotics. And we always try to make a clean surface, right? Using the chemical methods, including citric acid, EDTA, and the H2O2, and also we can use razor. And we try to do non-surgical treatment, but it doesn't have any effective sign, then we can go through to the surgical treatment. The flap operation to make the clean inside, and also to remove the granulation tissue, and the bone is enough, or the bone has the wall, we can do the regenerative surgery. If not, we just cut the gingiva and make proper the space, and it means the rejective surgery. So we always try to reduce the inflammations by removing the microbial plaque on the implant surface. So we can use the special device, right? But I usually use a metal scaler when I do the scaling, the natural tooth. I do the scaling at the same time, the dental implant. But you can use the Teflon tip or R brush, titanium brush, or air abrasive to remove the microbiome in the implant surface. And to reduce the inflammation by removing the microbial plaque, we can use the antiseptics like as chlorhexidine, or the antibiotics, minocycline or doxycycline. I always recommend to use chlorhexidine to patient, not mouth goggle. Just dip the proxybrush in the chlorhexidine solutions and then brushing the interdental part and then wash with water. That is enough in the home care, right? So I always suggest, but in the dental clinic, I use the tetracycline like this. So we can use the tetracycline 1 capsules that is 250 milligram, and we can use the cotton pellet like that. Then we just use a small volume of saline, 1 millimeter. And we can dip the cotton pellet and brush the implant surface. Or we can do the saline, the tetracycline irrigations, right? As then we can use more volume of the saline, 5 millimeters. So irrigations in the deep part is good for the maintenance of the peri-implant disease. So let's look at these patients. These patients has the peri-implantitis, especially in the number 46, right? We can see the bone resorptions around this implant. But after treatment with the tetracycline, we can see the bone regeneration. After 1 year and after 5 years, we can see the bone regeneration. I just did like this. After the prosthesis remover and open the flap, and then surface decontaminations with tetracycline using the cotton pellet, and then close the flap, and I did FGG because there is not enough keratinoid tissue around the dental implant. So to make the enough keratinoid tissue for the stable mucosal sealing, I did surgery and then healed. So it could get regenerations after the FGG and also the tetracycline, the surface decontaminations using the tetracyclines. So I think that is enough. And also we can rescue the dental implant when the implant has the disease, like as peri-implantitis. And also there's many decontamination method, EDTA or the H2O2 or laser or the photodynamic therapies. Is up to you to use this method. But I usually use tetracycline and also the H2O2 ball. And even though we did non-surgical treatment, it doesn't have any clinical impact. We go to the surgical treatment, right? And surgical treatment, we do the open flap debridement and the rejective surgery or the soft tissue management. It means if there is no enough the keratinoid tissue, we can do the pre-gingival graft and also a reposition flap to make a deep vestibules, right? So we can rescue the diseased implant, and also we can make the regenerations via the augmented approaches. So in these cases, in the right lower, the posteriors, it has peri-implantitis like this, and the bone level was the lower, but the gingival level was higher. So in this case, I just do the apical reposition flap, and even though the implant's picture was exposed, but it's not a big deal, right? Because that is the posterior. There's no aesthetic point. That is not anterior. So we just focus to make a good conditions to use the proxybrush at home by the patient, right? So we can get the peri-implant health, making the good conditions of the use the proxybrush at home by patient. And in these cases, the patient has problem, the tooth number, the 36, and it makes more severe bone defects. The medial part of the implant, it looks like a peri-implantitis, right? And this situations, I did tooth extractions and also the ARP and also the GBR at the medial part like this. So I try to do regenerations in these cases. And in this case, because there is apical involvement, right? Apical part, the bone resorption is severe. In that case, we have to remove her, right? And after removal, we can see the severe bone defect. In this case, we can do immediate GBR. We usually say this IGBR, right? So IGBR is great for the next implant surgery. And let's look at the implant maintenance. How do you do the implant maintenance? I do like this. So the peri-implant maintenance therapy is PIMT, right? This goal is the prevention of peri-implant mucositis, right? The early stage of peri-implant disease. So we prevent peri-implantitis at the stage of the peri-implant mucositis. And we always do the record check. So minimum the record check interval is 5 and 6 months, but in my case, I do the 3 or 4 months record checks the implant patients. So there is many the meta-analysis and also systematic review support the importance of the peri-implant maintenance therapy, PIMT. So we always think about the use the special device for the implant, right? Because implant is made by the titanium or zirconia, and when we use the metal, the instrument, it can increase the surface roughness, right? So we wonder and we worry about that, but I think that it's not a big deal, right? Because the surface is already SLA surface. It has enough surface, right? So if we do the better, the probe or the better scaler, I use that. I do not use a special device for that, so don't worry about that. There is some devices like as carbon fibers or the titanium, but it's okay. If it is enough time to use for the implant, it's okay. But we have many patients, right? So we do not use the special device. So I always concentrate to the patients to do the dental care with the Proxabracy or the water pick at home. And at clinic, we just the deep cleaning around the dental implant with a very sharp and fine scaler tips. I usually use the better scalers. So there's many special instruments for the implant scaling. Do you use this device? Do you use? I have, but I don't use. I don't use because I don't have enough time when I see the patient. I usually see the patient around 100 for one day, an outpatient. So there's no enough time. So even though we have the special device, I just use the metal scaler tips. And other people also think about that, like me, right? So there is some special device with the carbon and plastic, but it is the metal tips, right? When we use the scaling the natural tooth, right? I usually use these metal scalers. So we can see that when we use the metal scaler, it can increase the surface roughness compared to carbon or plastic, right? I agree with that. It can increase the surface roughness, but it does not a big deal because we can see that the plaque and calculus index is not increased, right? So it is important. So do not make more plaque or the calculus around the dental implant. Do not focus on the surface roughness. That is already have enough surface roughness. So when we do metal scaler, it does not a big deal. So don't worry about that. So I do implant scaling with normal metal scaler. So don't worry about that. So I always focus on the do the scaling with the dip and the fine scalar tip and clean the inside enough, right? Not the special device, right? So I always focus on the cleaning in the deep side with any device, or even though in the metal scaler, it's okay. So it can maintain our patient with implants very well. So it is very important for the long-term survival success of the implant. So this is the end of my presentation, and xin cảm ơn. Thank you. So if you have any questions or comments, please let me know.
Ở trong file thì em có thấy 2 câu hỏi. Bác sĩ Nguyễn Minh Quân ở trong cabin dịch có thể check cái link mà em gửi ở trong Zalo, thì anh có thể update 2 câu hỏi này tới bác, và để em mời bác đeo một cái headphone. Đưa cho bác nghe cái headphone. Yes, because we have our Vietnamese questions, so the translator will have. So you should wear the headphone. Yes. Ở đây có một số bác sẽ không có đeo tai nghe, thì em xin đặt câu hỏi đầu tiên. Em xin đọc cái câu hỏi đầu tiên mà các bác gửi đến bác sĩ Cho. Đó là thông thường thì trong trường hợp đặt implant tức thì thường các bác sĩ sẽ đặt phục hình tạm trong vòng vài tháng đầu sau phẫu thuật. Vậy nếu bệnh nhân có yêu cầu thẩm mỹ tức thì sẽ xử lý như thế nào? Xin mời bác Quân có thể đặt câu hỏi này bằng tiếng Anh tới bác Cho ạ.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear properly. Yes. Oh, you mean the immediate rodding, right? Oh yes, because I'm working in the dental hospitals, so we have the separate department. So I just do the surgery part. So I usually the maintain the healing abutment for a short time. So in the case of the prosthetics by myself, I do the temporary, but it's not usual conditions.
So, and the second question is that why are you using the granulation tissue to cover for the healing side?
Okay, I usually use the IGT. That is very useful because in the open healing techniques, I think that the collagen matrix is enough for the soft tissue regeneration. But the more perfect condition is covered with the soft tissue. So because we can get the very thick IGT in the case of the chronic conditions, so I used IGT for the 100% coverings.
do you use the PDRN in the peri-implant treatment?
Yes, I use the PDRN in the peri-implantitis cases. I put PDRN inside of pocket depths because it can reduce the inflammations in the deep site. So I usually use the PDRN in the inflammation patient, like as peri-implantitis and also periodontitis.
Thì đó là ba. Alo. Thì đó là ba chúng tôi nhận được. Chúng tôi nhận được ở trong cái bảng, thì nếu như mà có bác sĩ nào có đặt câu hỏi trong hội trường thì em sẽ hỗ trợ dịch lại chứ ạ. Do you use PDRN?
Em có thấy một câu hỏi nữa, chắc là bác sĩ muốn làm rõ hơn, đó là xin theo dựa cái câu hỏi trước đó thì xin bác sĩ cho biết làm sao để phân biệt mô hạt sang thương quanh chóp cần loại bỏ hay là giữ lại.
Hello. We got two more. First question is that do you use PDRN in case of GBR too? Do you use PDRN in case you apply GBR?
GBR.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that PDRN is very effective for the soft tissues, for the anti-inflammation and also tissue regenerations. But I'm not sure about the bone graft. I just believe that when I use PDRN, when I do the GBR, that can help to faster the soft tissue healing, and then it can help the underneath bone regeneration. So some dentists in Korea use the PDRN to mix with the bone graft material, and also they put the PDRN in the bone inside directly, but I don't use that method. I just apply the PDRN in the soft tissues.
Thì quan điểm của tôi là PDRN nó sẽ tạo thuận lợi cho cái sự lành thương của mô mềm chứ không phải là mô xương. Cho nên là ở Hàn Quốc thì có một số bác sĩ người ta trộn cái PDRN đó với lại xương để mà ghép luôn, thì tôi không đồng ý với lại cái cách đó lắm. Thì dĩ nhiên là nếu như dùng PDRN thì nó sẽ có tác động tích cực với GBR theo ý nghĩa là nó sẽ tạo thuận lợi cho sự lành thương mô mềm. Chứ nếu cái việc mà mình trộn nó vào xương thì nó sẽ không có ảnh hưởng gì. So second question is that how can you tell that the granulation tissue we should remove or not?
Granulation tissue remove?
Remove or not?
Oh, okay. So in the case of the granulation tissues, I always check the condition of the granulation tissues. In the case of the chronic conditions, we can see the very thick and stable the granulation tissue that is connected with the buccal or lingual flap. So we can use that for the covering. But in the case of the granulation tissue is not tight or that has a very weak conditions, I just remove the granulation tissue because it has more inflammatory signs. So I do not use that for the covering.
Thì giáo sư sẽ kiểm tra cái mô hạt đó là nó có dày và nó dai săn chắc hay không. Nếu như mà cái mô mềm đó nó không có dày và nó rất là dễ loại bỏ thì là mình sẽ bỏ luôn. Còn đối với cái mô hạt mà mình thấy nó đụng vào mà thấy nó dày với nó dai thì mình sẽ giữ lại.
So in the case of a good condition of IGT, it looks like as a gingiva, not the granulation tissue.
Thì trong những trường hợp mà mình có thể sử dụng lại cái mô hạt đó trong cái phương pháp IGT, tức là sử dụng lại cái mô hạt để mà che phủ cho cái vùng nhổ răng, thì nó sẽ có cảm giác như là mình đụng vào nướu vậy. Next question is that in case we're placing implant to replace for tooth number 36 and we have the prosthesis space of 12 millimeters, can I place the implant in with the initial torque of 40 and 55? Can we use the immediate loading technique?
So I think that we have to check the ISQ first for the immediate loading. So in that case, I think that we can do the immediate loading. So, but I think that we have to check the every conditions after the implant placement. But so that is very the minimum the information about that. So I will do immediate loading, but I'm not sure about the actual the conditions.
Thì với cái thông tin hạn chế mà bác sĩ cho tôi ấy thì dĩ nhiên là phải tùy theo từng ca, nhưng mà đối với ca đó thì có thể là tôi sẽ cho tái lực tức thì. Cái câu hỏi tiếp theo là dùng mô hạt viêm có nguy cơ sau này bị viêm nhiễm ảnh hưởng đến implant hay không, thì trong bài trình của giáo sư đã có trả lời rồi. Thì bác giáo sư sẽ dùng thêm cái PDRN để mà giảm cái phản ứng viêm đó, và mình có thể tận dụng cái mô hạt viêm để mà điều trị. Để có quý bác sĩ nào có câu hỏi đặt trong hội trường không ạ? Nếu như mà mình không có câu hỏi nào thêm nữa cho giáo sư thì Phương ơi, chắc mình chuyển qua mini game hỉ?
Dạ vâng ạ. Trong suốt quá trình ngày hôm nay thì từ giờ đến chiều thì bác Chu vẫn có ở đây. Nếu anh chị có bất kể một câu hỏi nào muốn đặt thêm cho bác Chu thì có thể vẫn nhấn anh. Bây giờ thì theo em được biết là có thêm một câu hỏi đúng không ạ?
We got one last question is in case we're placing implant in a aesthetic zone, the implant is already in ideal position and we use dual zone technique. After 5 or 10 years, still we see a dehiscence of the buccal bone. So can we do anything to prevent that from happening?
It is very critical point because the bone is always undergoing the resorption. So buccal bone is very thin than the parietal or lingual bone. So you can see the buccal descent after 10 years or 5 years. So I think that it can induce by periimplantitis or other things like as the already thin bone. So if the buccal descent make decrease the aesthetics, we can apply the collagen matrix to make a more thick gingiva, because in the anteriors, the aesthetic point is the biggest part, and the patients just want the healthy gingiva, so they don't know about the bone resorption. So I will just do the PBM in the case of the buccal descent when the patients complain about the aesthetics. So I think that the preventive modality is the peri-implant health maintenance, and also if the buccal descent make the aesthetic point reductions, you can make a thick gingiva using the collagen matrix.
Dạ, em xin tóm tắt lại câu trả lời của bác, đó là thực ra cái câu hỏi này nó khá là khó, tại vì xương thì nó sẽ luôn tái cấu trúc qua thời gian, cho nên cái việc nở lõm ở mô mềm nó luôn luôn có thể xảy ra. Thì về từ góc nhìn của bệnh nhân thì người ta sẽ không có quan tâm đến cái chuyện là xương nó tiêu hay không, mà là cái phần lõm đó thôi. Thì với bác thì bác sẽ ghép cái collagen matrix, cái khung collagen để làm dày cái vết mô mềm mặt ngoài để giải quyết. Mình sẽ có một vài cái câu hỏi khác nữa. In clinic, do you prefer PDRN or use a
cross-linked hyaluronic acid?
I think that those impacts are similar, so it's up to you. Is PDRN is easy to handle. You can use the PDRN. In the case of HA, there's many application methods, so I can use hyaluronic acid or PDRN. There is no differences of the impact.
Câu trả lời của bác là dùng cái nào cũng được, mọi người dùng cái nào mà thấy quen tay hơn thì cứ sử dụng.
But I think that the hyaluronic acid is older patients in Korea, and nowadays, currently, the PDRN is very current, the patients. So nowadays, it's very popular to use the PDRN in the case of the inflammation conditions.
Ở Hàn Quốc thì dùng PRN nó đang là xu thế nên nó sẽ phổ biến hơn. In case we're doing resective therapy, do we have to smoothen out the part of the implant has already exposed? If you're doing the that kind of resective therapy, then do you have any tools, special equipment that you can use?
In the case of exposure of a picture, I usually do the resective surgery. It means there is no worse for the regenerative surgery. So there is no tools, but I just use the epicural positional flap to make the deep vestibule, because the mucosa always make mucosal sealing, unstable mucosal sealing. So we have to make a more deep vestibular depth. And also, if there is a little bit keratinized gingiva around 1 or 2 millimeter, it's okay. But if there is no enough keratinized gingiva, we have to do FGG. In that case, we can use collagen matrix, especially in the caseless mucal graft. You can use the collagen matrix in the cases.
About the exposed thread of the implant, you do anything with it?
In the part of exposed pictures, I can do the surface decontaminations. That's all.
So you just decontaminate the exposed part and you do
right.
nothing with the thread.
Yes.
Dạ, câu trả lời của bác đó là trong những trường hợp đó thì cái phần ren bị lộ bác không có làm láng rồi, chỉ có sử dụng những cái phương pháp để mà làm sạch thôi. Và chú ý là cái phần mô mềm thường trong những cái trường hợp đó thì sẽ cần dùng một cái vạt định vị và phía chóp kết hợp với lại ghép nướu tự do để mà tăng cái thể tích nướu xương hóa. Dạ, mọi người còn câu hỏi này nữa không ạ? Lai còn hoài.
Hiện tại là không còn câu hỏi nào nữa đúng không anh?
Chưa đó.
Dạ vâng. Nếu mà
Dạ
chưa
thì
còn...
bác Châu sẽ còn ở tới đây tới cuối ngày lận, cho nên là nếu mà trong giờ ăn trưa mọi người có nảy ra câu hỏi nào thì cứ gửi lên trên cái link QR code đó, thì rồi em sẽ hỏi bác để mà chuyển cái câu trả lời tới mọi người sau.
Dạ vâng, trước khi bác Châu về Việt Nam thì em có nói là bác Châu có thể cho một số cái mini game nho nhỏ nào đó không? Và bác đã sẵn sàng là có những cái mini game để có thể tương tác thêm với anh chị. Vậy thì bác đã chuẩn bị 3 case và bây giờ thì bác sẽ đưa ra câu trả lời và đưa ra câu hỏi, và các anh chị ở dưới có thể giơ tay trả lời và bác sẽ là người đánh giá đâu là câu trả lời tốt nhất. Và với 3 case này thì sẽ chọn ra 3 người có câu trả lời tốt nhất và ban tổ chức sẽ gửi những phần quà tới các anh chị. Nên là bây giờ mình sẽ bắt đầu ngay cái phần này nhé.
Phương ơi, mình mô tả kỹ hơn cái thể thức của cái trò chơi này đi, trả lời làm sao? Bác show cây lên rồi mọi người giơ tay để mà trả lời theo cá nhân hay là trả lời theo tập thể?
Yeah. Yes, you can start now and you can talk about the detail how people can play with this.
Okay, let's play the mini game. So I think that there is no exact answer about that, but that is just my decision and my protocols. So I prepared the 2 cases about implantations. So I wonder your decision and your answer, and I hope you have the same way with me based on any evidences. So
Thì đây là những cái ca lâm sàng của chính tôi. Thì thực ra nó sẽ không có một cái câu trả lời nào gọi là chính xác cho những cái trường hợp này. Đây chỉ là những cái trường hợp mà tôi dựa theo cái quyết định của tôi để mà những cái việc thăm khám để mà đưa ra cái quyết định của tôi thôi, và hy vọng là mọi người sau cái bài trình ngày sáng hôm nay thì cũng sẽ có những cái quyết định tương tự.
So I just want ask about your decision in these patients. So one is the immediate implantations and the other would be the delayed implant.
Thì với những cái ca này thì mình sẽ trả lời là xem là mình có đặt được implant tức thì hay không, hay là mình sẽ lựa chọn làm đặt implant trì hoãn.
So this patient has a severe bone defect around the tooth number 37, as you can see, and because its defect was expanded to the tooth number 36. So in this case, what can you do? The immediate implantations or delayed implantations?
Thì bây giờ ở đây nó có một cái răng 37, có một cái sang thương, có một cái khuyết hỏng xương khá là lớn và đang lan dần tới cái răng 36 rồi. Thì mọi người sẽ giải quyết như thế nào? Mình coi liệu là mình có thể đặt được implant tức thì không? Professor Cho, so the audience will raise their hand to answer the question individually, right? Dạ thì trong khán phòng mình sẽ, nếu mà các bác sĩ nào có tham gia mini game này thì giơ tay để mà đưa ra cái kế hoạch điều trị cho cái ca này, và kế hoạch điều trị đó nếu như mà nó phù hợp thì sẽ được giải ạ.
Yeah, Dr. Minh, thank you for your great presentation. Decision of this case, I think we should have delay implant placement because of the reason that we do not have enough bone for the primary stability of the implant, and the second one is I think that we have infection. We need to remove the infection, and after that we can wait about 3 months for the next stage. Thank you.
Dạ, vậy câu trả lời của bác đó là mình sẽ không có đặt implant tức thì được, mà mình sẽ làm trì hoãn, bởi vì nó có viêm nhiễm và không có đủ xương để mình có thể gài implant được.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So
Dạ, bác cũng đồng ý ạ.
yes, so because this has a severe bone resorptions, and also the main reason for the delayed implantation is the intra-alveolar nerve, right? Because there is a risk of the intra-alveolar nerve, so we cannot go inside more for get the initial stability. So in that case, I will give my clinical procedures like this, because there is no enough the ranks from the IAN, so I decide to do delayed implantations after ARP like this. So because we can have the enough bone at the around tooth number 36, so we can think the superior osteogenic potential when we do ARP. So I did like this, and I did the open healing system, and also we can see the good bone quality and the quantity after the 4 months. So I could delay the implant as well. So I think that you are the exact answers.
Dạ thì bác cũng đồng ý với lại câu trả lời của bác sĩ. Thì cái lý do chính để mình phải chọn delay đó là vì cái khoảng còn lại cho tới cái ống thần kinh phía bên dưới nó quá hạn chế, mình không có gài implant được. Cho nên là bác đã nhổ và ghép bảo tồn xương ổ và cho nó lành thương thứ phát để mà cải thiện mô mềm, rồi sau đó đặt implant vào. Phương ơi, Như vậy thì giải thưởng mình trao như thế nào nè?
Dạ, mình sẽ kết thúc 3 case và cho bác liền mạch luôn, thì mình sẽ mời 3 anh chị lên đây để tặng quà.
Dạ, vậy là bác sĩ đã trúng giải đầu tiên rồi ạ.
Dạ,
Lát
vâng,
nữa
dạ, xin
kết thúc
chúc mừng
mini
anh
game
ạ.
sẽ lên nhận giải luôn một lượt.
Dạ, mời các bác sĩ có thể cho một tràng pháo tay cho câu trả lời đầu tiên được nhận quà được không ạ? Dạ. Yes, so now we can next to the second.
Okay, so we can see this patient has a chronic conditions on the tooth number 21, and we can see the severe bone resorptions. So what can you do in this patient?
Dạ, thì cái răng 21 này nó có viêm mãn và nó khuyết xương khá là nhiều. Giờ mình sẽ điều trị như thế nào?
It's very easy because the person was delayed implantation.
Làm delay hay là làm tức thì ạ?
Có bác sĩ nào là nói câu trả lời to quá, mọi người có thể giơ tay lên, em xin một câu trả lời cụ thể
trả
được
lời
không
tập
ạ?
thể là mình không được giải đâu ạ. Mọi người giơ tay để trả lời cá nhân thì mới được giải.
One or the other.
Hôm nay mình đang hơi bị bỏ qua mất buổi tea break nên là các anh chị có vẻ hơi mệt đúng không ạ? Chắc chỉ khoảng 5 phút nữa thôi là mình đến giờ ăn trưa rồi, nên là bây giờ để tương tác nốt những phút cuối thì em mời các anh chị có thể cho bác một câu trả lời được không ạ? Em biết là anh chị có câu trả lời hết cho mình rồi đấy, nhưng mà không giơ tay thôi. À vâng, cảm ơn anh.
Vâng, xin chào giáo sư, xin chào tất cả mọi người. Em là bác sĩ Cường tới từ Vũng Tàu. Thì theo em thì cái ca này thì hoàn toàn là mình có thể nhổ làm sạch ổ viêm. Cái thức thì có ghép xương và nếu mà được thì có thể ghép thêm mô mềm ạ. Dạ, xin hết ạ.
So his answer is immediate placement after extraction, remove the granulation tissue, maybe GBR and soft tissue augmentation.
Great, perfect. Yeah.
Câu trả lời quá tuyệt vời ạ.
Congratulations.
Vâng, xin chúc mừng anh.
Yeah, so because this was a chronic state and also I used IGT at the Booker side. In the case of the chronic states, we can get the IGT at Booker side because usually there is the Booker word defects, almost cases. So I placed implant and then grabbed bone materials and covered with the collagen membrane and then covered with IGT. And I could get enough the initial stability and also get good bone regenerations.
Dạ thì bác Châu cũng có cái hướng giải quyết tương tự cho cái ca này. Mình cũng nhổ cái tức thì, xử lý mô mềm bằng phương pháp IGT, cái phương pháp mà tận dụng lại cái phần mô hạt để mà ghép, rồi đặt collagen matrix vào để mà gia tăng cái thể tích mô mềm.
So I think that the key to success of the implantation is the enough bone inside and also about the anatomical structures, because in the posteriors, in the maxillar, we have the sinus, right? So it is very difficult to place implant more deeply when we do immediate implantation. And also in the mandibular, the posterior, we have the alveolar nerve, so it is very risky. So in the anteriors, you usually can do the immediate implantations if there is some bone in there, but in the case of posteriors, it is very difficult to do the immediate implantations. So I usually do the delayed implantations when the bone is not enough in the posterior.
Do những cái giới hạn về mặt giải phẫu cho cái vùng răng sau ở hàm trên và hàm dưới, có thể là do nó quá gần xoang hay là quá gần với lại ống thần kinh, cho nên thường mình sẽ không thể đặt implant sâu hơn để mà đạt được cái độ vững ổn ban đầu tốt. Nhưng mà đối với cái vùng răng trước thì nó sẽ không có vướng những cái điểm mốc giải phẫu như vậy, cho nên thường là đối với răng trước mình có thể đạt được tức thì.
Okay, that's it. Yes. Just two. Just two questions.
Vâng, đấy là phần bác đã giải thích. You have to...
Just 2 cases.
That's all.
Bác có 2 case để mini game về bên mình ạ. Vâng, thế em xin chúc mừng là 2 câu trả lời xuất sắc của hai anh. Và xin mời hai bác sĩ có thể lên trên sân khấu để nhận phần quà là một tăm nước NPIS trị giá là 1.350.000 đồng của Implant phân phối. Và xin mời hai bác sĩ có thể lên đây để bác Chu có thể tặng quà và chụp hình lưu niệm cùng hai anh được không ạ? Xin mọi người có thể cho một tràng pháo tay, một là cảm ơn bác Chu, hai là cho phần tương tác mini game của hai anh đã có được phần quà cho bản thân mình. Rồi. Yes. Một lần nữa xin cảm ơn phần trình bày của bác Chu cũng như là phần chuyển ngữ của bác sĩ Nguyễn Minh Quân. Và chúng ta sẽ còn có cơ hội cuối năm nay gặp bác Chu khi mà Warantec có một chương trình tổ chức cho các bác sĩ có thể, đó nó gọi là Washi Day, nghĩa là ngày hội Warantec và được tổ chức hàng năm. Và năm nay thì cái kế hoạch Washi sẽ triển khai đó là ở 2 nơi và tổng cộng là cái thời lượng mình đi đó là 5 ngày 4 đêm. Thứ nhất là 3 ngày ở đảo Jeju và thứ nhất là ở chương trình ở đảo Jeju và có tất cả các bác sĩ, các giáo sư với các chủ đề báo cáo cả ngày ở phía bên tay phải ở đây. Và đây là chương trình ở đảo Jeju. Ở đảo Jeju thì chúng ta sẽ có vừa tham quan ngắm cảnh và có một buổi workshop như thế này. Sau đấy thì đến ngày mùng 9 thì đoàn có thể di chuyển đến Seoul để tham gia một buổi đào tạo ở trường đại học Seoul. Và ở đây thì sau khóa học này thì mọi người sẽ được cấp bằng chứng nhận là khóa học ngắn hạn, khóa đào tạo ngắn hạn của Đại học Seoul Hàn Quốc. Và đây là chương trình mà 5 ngày 4 đêm và sẽ diễn ra từ khoảng ngày mùng 7 cho đến ngày 11 tháng 11 năm 2025. Và chúng ta hoàn toàn có thể có cơ hội gặp lại bác sĩ Chu và rất nhiều bác sĩ là giáo sư đầu ngành mà Warantec đã mời cho cái ngày hội Washi Day của Warantec, cũng như là nhóm giáo sư đang đào tạo ở trường Đại học Seoul Hàn Quốc. Và đây là một cái gói chương trình khuyến mại. Nếu bác sĩ có mua gói 50 trụ Warantec thì các bác sĩ sẽ được một suất miễn phí cho chuyến học tập 5 ngày 4 đêm tại Hàn Quốc. Và em chỉ lưu ý thêm điều này thôi ạ. Và sau đây thì chúng ta sẽ đến phần sẽ hết phần phiên buổi sáng thì chúng ta